Hello folks, this is Sullla once again. Welcome to another video for Civilization 4. This time, I'm not going to be continuing the Always War Babylon. I will get to that, trust me. I do intend to finish playing that out, but this is going to be a different video. This is going to be a video where we do another one of these things where we look at a particular start that's been played out. This is going to be taken from Realms Beyond Play by Email game number 53. So if you are one of the 4 other players in Play by Email 53, please do not take a look at this video if you would. Thank you. We're going to be looking at the start as played by Dolfir, and I hope I'm getting that name correct. I'm going to go ahead and first show you how he played out his start. I'm sort of in a lurking role for this, a dedicated lurker in Realms Beyond speak, trying to give a few advice and suggestions, not trying to play the game for Dolfir, but trying to give some suggestions. In any case, let's go ahead and change the name. This is the name that was already in this sandbox when I went ahead and downloaded it. So anyway, go ahead and change that, and it should kick in once we actually settle. In any case, so what is this? This is a sandbox. What I mean by that is it's where you go in and you recreate the start position as it looks in-game, and then you can kind of play around and practice and do different kind of things. So let me give you a little context. This is I believe this is a 5-player play-by-email game that's ongoing right now at the time, and Dolfir is one of the people who's playing in the game. They had a bit of a unusual picking thing whereby they had like a certain amount of points to choose from, different options when setting up the game. What Dolfir ended up picking was he is playing as Hannibal of Persia, so he is financial charismatic, financial being one of the strongest, probably the strongest trait possible for games like this. And then charismatic provides extra happiness per city, less units, less experience needed for unit promotion, and then an additional happiness per city from monuments or broadcast towers. It's a weaker trait. It's not terrible, but it is one of the weaker traits to be paired with financial. Players were not allowed to pair financial with some of the other stronger options. In any case, and then for the Civ, we have Persia as a Civ. Persia is a bit of an unusual civilization. We don't see them played all that much in these competitive multiplayer games, so I'll go ahead and pull them up. Pretty good starting text. Agriculture, hunting, or the starting text. Not bad. Could be stronger. Hunting seen as being kind of a weak starting tech. Agriculture, very good. Unique unit, the Immortal. The Immortal is very good in single player because they get a huge bonus against archer units. In multiplayer, people typically don't build a lot of archers. You don't see many archers, so they're not really all that strong for multiplayer. Not seen as being a particularly great unique unit. Really good against the AI in single player. Not so good against other human players. And then the Apothecary, it is a unique building, replaces Grocer. Basically, what is it that you get on this? You get more health from the Grocer than you would normally. You get a +2 flat health, and then another, that's what's the addition. It's that +2 extra health. Everything else is standard for the Grocer. So you typically don't build that many Grocers, and the Grocer tends to give plenty of health already, so this is not an especially great unique building either. One of the reasons why I said people typically don't go for Persia all that much. But, I mean, it's not a terrible choice. It could be worse, certainly. I mean, there are worse options. It's just not likely to do all that much to help out. There might have been better outlet. For instance, you could get the same starting text and pick the Zulus, and they're generally seen as being a better civilization than Persia. In any case, though, so here's our start. We've got 2 animal husbandry resources. We've got sheep and pigs at the start. And what that means is need to research animal husbandry first. Dolfir correctly did that. And we want to start with a worker build, as we pretty much always do when we're playing these games. You have to have a very, very good reason not to go worker first in a game like this. In any case, I'm not going to be scouting. That's because this is not the real map. This is just a sandbox, so we don't have to worry about other players. We don't have to worry about scouting. We're just going to practice simming out the opening. Again, I'm going to show you what Dolfir did when playing, and I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I'm going to show you what he did while playing, and then go from there. So that means we have to hit enter a bunch of times to start. Capital borders pop on turn 3. Oh, I should mention, you might say, well, wait, why did the borders pop that quickly? We are playing on quick game speed here. If you check out the settings, where is it? Quick game speed, not normal. So that means the game runs at a faster pace, and that will affect what things look like. So keep that in mind when I'm playing as well. Okay, so nothing happens until we finish animal husbandry. Animal husbandry will reveal that there is a horse resource down there in-game. At this point, there are basically 2 research paths. You can either go wheel pottery, or alternately can go mining, bronze working. When Dolphier was playing, he went mining bronze working, and I do believe that that was the correct option from what I did when I was looking at this and testing it. So we'll go ahead and continue playing along and queue up mining tech right here. All right, so again, nothing happened. Just ignore the Buddhism being founded in a distant land. That's just the AI, and that doesn't really matter. All right, so finally on turn 8, our worker finishes, and now we're going to set for a warrior build, and that's just so that the capital can start growing. Okay, so the worker can choose to improve the sheep or can choose to improve the pigs. Dolphier had them improve the sheep first, so we'll go ahead and queue that up. Note that a pasture takes 3 turns to finish on quick as opposed to the 4 turns it would take on normal game speed, but that's all that we'll queue up for right here. So again, nothing to be done on this turn. Workers still improving the sheep. Nothing to be done on this turn. We finished mining. Now we're going to queue up bronze working. And now the worker finishes. And check out what happens to our sheep pasture. It is now a 4 food, 1 production, 3 commerce tile. We are getting a 3rd commerce here because of financial trait. Otherwise, it would be 2 commerce. One reason why financial is such a nice trait. But anyway, it doesn't really change too much of what we're doing right here. Sheep pasture's done. And the worker will now move over to the pigs. And we'll go ahead and pick that up next. Yes, very well. We have connected our first resource. Very nice. Doesn't really do anything at the start. So anyway, worker moves over there, and on the next turn, all right, we finished our first warrior. Queue up another warrior here. Now we're going to improve the pigs as well. That will turn this from a 2 food, 1 production tile into a 5 food, 1 production tile. We'll make this a much, much better tile. And this warrior can kind of go wherever he feels like, but we'll send him over to our 2nd city site. That's what I was planning on. I'll just send him to where the 2nd city is going to go. By the way, this forest here actually just grew this turn. I'm going to edit that out of the game later on. But in this sim, there's another forest that grows later on too that doesn't happen in the real game. Okay, so turn 13, a couple things happen here. Dolphier, for some reason, swapped his research from bronze working to wheel, halfway completed, and of course you can do that in this game. I do not think that was a good decision. You almost never want to do this. If you wanted the wheel tech, then you should have researched wheel immediately, not researched half of bronze working. But the swap to wheel research, I believe, was a mistake. I'll show why that is later on. The capital has also grown to size 2. Now the capital can work both the sheep and another tile. It's going to pick up the spices because get a bonus point of commerce on the spices tile right now. So continue working that. And what Dolphier did was he swapped his city over to a settler at size 2, which is a debatable call. It's not a terrible decision, but as you'll see when I replay this start, I do think that there was a better choice than going settler right here at size 2. But anyway, that was the decision made, and we'll see what happens. So it is a 9-turn settler. Now that might not sound that bad, but remember, this is quick speed. So this is effectively like roughly a 13 or 14 turn settler on normal, and that's generally longer than what you want. You generally don't want to start a settler if it takes that long to finish one. But in any case, we will see that this build time will drop when the worker finishes that pig's pasture. So watch, it's going to drop, and now the time goes down. If we check this out in game, swap over there to the pig style, now it's only 6 turns, and that's a lot more reasonable. So that would be like a 9-turn settler build on normal speed, and that is a bit more reasonable. So anyway, that's what we're looking at right now, and that's where we are as of turn 14. Now, here's where things start to get interesting. Okay, note that we have another forest grow here. I'm just going to world builder these 2 forests out that accidentally grew. This did not happen in-game when actually playing, so I'm just going to remove the 2 of them, and that's why I didn't edit out the first one, because I knew another forest was going to grow. Okay, so here's the problem. Right now, what does the worker do? Like, this is the problem with the way that this start has been set up. This worker really has nothing to do. He can't build roads because wheel tech's not done. He can't chop forests because bronze working's not done. Bronze working's only halfway complete. So what does this guy do? I mean, he could mine, but that's not, I mean, that he could go over and start mining, but that's, not a great option. Kind of the best of a bad lot. What Dolphier had to his guy do was he just moved the worker into the capital, so just wasted a worker turn there. And based on the tech choices adopted, there wasn't really a whole lot that he could do. So that was kind of a wasted turn. All right, and then on this turn 16, as I have written down here, the worker, again, wheel's still not done, can't really do anything. So the worker just moves here and, well, just sits there doing nothing. The one thing he could do is he could farm this tile and then cancel the farm, so put 1 turn into farming. But that's not all that useful either, because that farm's not going to be completed anytime soon. So that was kind of 2 turns largely just wasted there, which is non-optimal. This is why you want a sandbox to try and remove those wasted worker turns. Okay, so we finished the wheel. Now we can build roads. Can also build immortals once we hook up horses. Now Dolfer went back and finished bronze working as a tech. So went back to bronze working again. Okay, so now that the worker can use bronze working, or excuse me, has wheel tech done, he's going to go ahead and start building a road here. Now, once again, a little thing about building roads, you generally want to minimize time building roads in the early game. The reason for that is, although yes, it's nice, roads can create trade connections for trade routes, and roads are also something that allows you to speed up the movement of units. Roads don't change tile yields in this game. Let me turn on the tile yields here for a second. Turn on the tile yields. The other worker actions directly improve tile yields. Like, for example, connecting resources will give you more yield on the tiles. Chopping forests will give you bonus production. Roads don't change the tile yield, so you don't really want to build them that much. You want to minimize road building early in the game, and as we'll see, this particular setup actually has quite a bit of road building here, and again, that's a little bit of a problem for this particular start. So anyway, once again, is going to finish the road. Worker's now going to move to the southwest, is going to start another road right here. You can see is roading over for the settler, which is very nice, but as we'll see, that's a little bit of an issue here as well. So anyway, settler finishes on turn 20. Worker is going to finish this road. Settler is going to move down here to this spot, but you'll notice something, watch. Building this road did not increase the speed at which we settle. If there had been no road here whatsoever, the settler would have moved here and then here, would have moved 2 tiles southwest, and then the settler would have moved and planted a city on turn 21. Building that road did not increase the speed at which the settler it did not increase the speed at which the city was founded. So the 4 turns spent building these roads, yeah, they're not terrible. You do want a road on these tiles, but that was 4 turns that weren't spent mining or road or chopping forests or something. Granted, couldn't have chopped forest anyway because bronze working wasn't done, but it didn't really help that much. In any case, though, so we're going to have the going to go back to building that warrior and going to go ahead and hit next turn. Now bronze working is finished. And we would see copper on the map if copper was available. There is in fact copper on this map, just not in this particular sandbox. If you notice, there's actually a copper up here on the real map, but it's just not placed in the sandbox. Now, what Dolfer did on this turn was he used this turn to revolt into slavery. So we'll go ahead, queue up that revolution. Go ahead and do that. And the city went ahead and founded his second city right here. So we'll go ahead and plant that. And queued up another warrior here. And the worker went ahead and started farming on the corn tile, which is definitely what the worker wants to be doing because this is a very powerful tile and you want to get this connected ASAP. We'll just fortify this warrior in place because there's not all that much for him to do on this particular turn. All right, so hit next turn. We've connected. Now, this is one thing that the road does do. It does connect both cities with a trade route. So if you look inside the cities, they will have that little bonus extra commerce coming in from the trade route. There you go. Can see that taking effect. Right here, Persepolis has quite a bit of overflow from that last build. That's just going to go, I believe, into another warrior here from what I've seen. I think that this is what it went into. It was either that or a barracks, and either way wasn't too terribly useful. So anyway, I believe that that's what it was used for based on trying to recreate this. Science was also queued up to 100%, even though you actually can't run 100%, but you'll see what happens to that when I hit next turn. All right, so we'll go ahead, hit next turn. Don't need to worry about that lion. It won't enter the borders. And then here on turn 23, the capital grows to size 3 and begins a 4-turn worker. So we've got one more warrior, and he can go head out over in this direction, but not really all that much for him to do. So the capital size 3, it's working the pigs, the sheep, and the silk tile. And over here, the second city is just working its corn tile, and it's growing. So pottery is, you know what happens if you can't run sustainable science? The game will drop you down to a sustainable science rate. So that's what happened right there. Okay, so now we'll go ahead, click next turn once again. At this point, Dolfer did in fact tick up to 100% science again, and the worker is going to finish this corn farm, so that'll increase the food here. Now it has a 5-food tile in the second city, and this warrior, just goes wherever. It doesn't really matter that much. So that's turn 24. And now we'll hit next turn again. This worker what Dolphir did was he had the worker moved. Wow, and that tile grew again. This game really wants to put a forest on that tile in this particular sandbox. Look at that. So let's get rid of that once again, because that didn't happen in the real game. What Dolphir did was he moved the worker to the horses tile in preparation for improving that next turn. But again, notice how this was a wasted turn for the worker. The worker didn't do anything this turn. If, on the other hand, you had put a road on this corn tile and then moved on the road to the horses, that would avoid wasting worker turns. Again, at the expense of delaying the horse pasture for 2 turns, but that would be more optimal instead of wasting a worker turn like that. And then this guy, go and hang out up here. I've suggested that this would be a good tile to put the 3rd city on, largely because there actually is another copper, I think, right on this tile. I think there's a copper on this tile. It's either this tile or... yeah, I believe that there's a copper on this tile, I think. But in any case, I've suggested that that would be a good spot for the next city. And then here's one other thing that Dolphir did, which seemed a little bit questionable. This worker was 2 turns away from being finished. He went ahead and whipped that worker, so dropped the city back down to size 2. Yes, that's whipping off an unimproved tile. That's true. But this is early in the game. There is still no granary in Persepolis. So, although you are whipping away a tile that's not all that great, you're also losing that pop point. And you've dropped the city down to a lower size, and it will have to regrow now. For speeding up a worker by 1 turn, kind of questionable as to how useful that is. And I believe the plan was to hit next turn. Capital's Water expands. I believe the plan was to go into a settler at this point, which would be a 5-turn settler. And then at this point, this worker can now, I guess he can either chop forests, or he can, road, or he can build cottages, or something along those lines. This guy down here is obviously going to connect the horse pasture, but note that Pasargadae, size 2, but it has to work an unimproved tile, and it can go ahead and work this. It can go ahead and grab this tile. There actually is a river that's not in this world builder either. There's actually a tiny little river on these 2 tiles that is not in this sandbox. But in any case, so that's kind of what this looks like. Now, was this the worst start I've ever seen? No, I've seen starts played worse than this. A lot worse than this. But I do think it could have been optimized a little bit better. Swapping the tech choice from bronze working back to wheel, and then back to bronze working again. Having the worker build these 2 roads here. That was 4 turns spent building these roads that didn't really do all that much. A little bit questionable. And some non-optimization in terms of how this second city is running. So I'm just going to go back. I'm going to replay this start. I'm going to suggest another way to do this. I played around with this. I spent maybe about 2 hours looking at this, testing different things, trying out different ways to play this start. And I finally got something I was pretty happy with on maybe about the 6th or 7th time I tried different things. This is why you create sandboxes if you're going to play these games. You've got lots of time. These games don't move very fast. A play-by-email game does maybe 1 turn per day, so you've got plenty of time to test and experiment and see what happens. But so let's go ahead and replay this. We're going to do the same initial stuff, starting with a worker, researching animal husbandry. After that, though, it's going to start to look a little bit different, and I'm going to try to show how the different sort of pieces will fit together. Alright, so once again, we're just hitting next turn. Nothing's going to happen. Our horses appear down there once again. We're going to go into mining and then into bronze working, and this time we're not going to swap. This time we're not going to swap off of bronze working. We're just going to go straight mining into bronze working. And again, we can't really do anything until the worker's done. Okay, now the worker finishes. We want the warrior. Here's a real question that I actually had to spend close to an hour testing this, which was, is it better to improve the sheep first or the pigs first? And my initial gut instinct was that the pigs would be better because the pigs tile just has a higher yield. It's a 5 food tile, 5 food, 1 production, whereas the sheep is only 4 food, 1 production. So my thought was, it would be better to improve the pigs tile first. However, when I went through and experimented, I actually did come out ahead by going with the sheep tile first. And the reason for that was, if I move to the pigs tile, because it's on a hill, I'll waste a worker turn doing that, and then I'll have to improve it. Then I'll waste another worker turn moving over to the sheep. If I start with the sheep first, I can immediately pasture it. I don't waste a worker turn doing that. And as it turns out, getting the sheep tile up and running 1 turn sooner actually did make enough of a difference that it was better to do it that way. Like the fact that you were wasting 1 fewer worker turn caused this to come out ahead, even though the pig tile is a better tile. Plus the bonus commerce from getting the financial bonus in effect was actually worthwhile. So anyway, long story short, the TLDR version, this is not a forum thread, but I'll use that, is that the sheep tile actually did come out ahead. Very slightly. It was very close, but it did come out slightly ahead. All right, so in any case, we're going to improve this first, so we're still doing basically the same thing as in the initial playthrough. Going to go ahead, queue up bronze working. There is the sheep tile finishing, so we're going to go ahead, get the bonus advantage of that. That extra commerce did drop the research time on bronze working, and that actually is crucial. There's that forest growing again that we'll have to get rid of in a minute. All right, very well, carry on. Now we move over to the pigs tile. Again, this is still the same as what you saw thus far. Go ahead and hit next turn. Here's the difference, though, between what you saw before. Well, not actually. I need one more turn. All right, anyway. So we finish a warrior, and we'll just queue up another warrior. Still doing the same thing. And the AI found a religion out in the fog. Okay. Now, here's where things start to differ. Is at size 2, instead of building a settler, I'm going to build a worker. I'm going to build another worker because there is actually a lot of benefit to be had by getting another worker out early on in this game. So instead of building that 9-turn settler, I'm going to build a 5-turn worker, but it's actually going to come out in 4 turns when this pig pasture finishes. Okay, so move the worker, that pig's farm finishes, and now we finish the worker in 3 turns. So that was effectively a 4-turn worker, or on normal speed, that would be 6 turns. So that's pretty solid. We've got our 2 tiles in play. 2 research tiles, 2 resource tiles in play, and we're going to go ahead and build a second worker, which often comes out ahead in these kind of starts. Okay, so once again, note what happened. Another forest grew. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to word builder these out again. Unfortunately, this does get saved into the sandbox file, so it actually did do that every single time I tested it. So I've gotten used to editing these things out. Anyway, so what does the worker do right now? Well, this is the one turn with, right now the worker is basically waiting for bronze working to finish, which is unfortunate, but there's not too much we can do. So what I can do is, for positioning purposes, I want him to chop this tile first. I experimented with a couple of these, and for positioning purposes, we want him in that plains forest. So anyway, he's just going to move towards the sheep, going to move onto the sheep this turn. This is a wasted worker turn. Not much I can do about that. This is sort of the one non-optimized part. You are going to have to waste worker turns sometimes. So now he's going to move into the forest, and he'll be in the forest ready to chop when bronze working completes next turn. So go ahead, click next turn there. Now we finish bronze working, we can chop forest, reveals coppers, enables slavery, etc., etc. I'm not going to revolt into slavery on this turn, and I'm going to queue up the wheel tech as the next one. So okay, now we've got 2 workers, in play. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start the chop to get start chopping here with this worker. The second worker is going to move here. He's going to chop that forest next turn. And for the moment, we're just going to continue growing. We're going to build this warrior. We're going to let the city continue to grow. And you'll see why that is in another turn or 2. So anyway, still hitting next turn. We'll queue up another warrior, although we're not going to finish this second one. The second worker also starts chopping, which will add production into the capital. Note that chopping does scale with game speed. So instead of 20 production, 20 hammers coming out from a chop, you actually get 13 because it's on quick speed. And this guy can just hang out in the capital. There's not really much for him to do. So now Persepolis is going to grow when I hit next turn. So Persepolis now hits size 3. And we had a chop complete, so we would get a ridiculous amount of production to a warrior, but we don't want that warrior. We're going to queue up a settler. And note that the settler is down to 5 turns already because there's a chop already going into it. And the 3 tiles we're going to work are the 2 resource tiles, and for lack of a better tile, this silks tile. This is still not great, working this silks tile. It's an unimproved tile. 2 food, 1 production, 1 commerce, but if you can see, there's no better options. Every other tile we could pick is a weaker tile, so it's the best of a bad lot. Plus, that extra commerce, the fact that we get that 1 little point of extra commerce, that actually does allow us to finish wheel tech a turn sooner. So that's why we go ahead and grow this to size 3. Okay, continuing onward. Now I'm going to move this worker into this forest, and this is why I wanted him to be on that forest tile before. I don't want to chop the silks forest just yet because I want to have that 2-1-1 tile. 2 food, 1 production, 1 commerce. I didn't want to chop this. And if I try to chop this forest, I can't move into that one. Or if I try to chop this forest, I can't reach that one in 1 turn. So he had to be in this forest. And then meanwhile, the other worker has finished this chop. Now look, the settler's down to 3 turns. 3 turns to finish that settler. And guess where this worker can move? Well, we're going to finish the wheel. We're going to queue up pottery. And then this worker can also move into that same forest. And then he'll be able to chop 1 turn into the chop here from this guy. Hit next turn, and then watch, we will finish that chop. Granted, this doesn't speed up the settler because the settler would have finished anyway, but we will get a lot of overflow from that chopping. That, that overflow will be preserved and will go into the next build. Plus, these 2 workers are on the tile I want them to be on, and you'll see why that's important in a second. Note that there we have not spent any turns building roads. There's been not really much in the way of wasted turns, just the 1 turn spent moving onto the sheep, and then the turn spent moving into a forest. Obviously, you waste a worker turn when you move into a forest. The only civ that doesn't get that wasted turn is India with its fast workers, and that's why India is the best civ in the game. No real question about that. All right, so we finished the settler. Now I'm going to queue up another worker, and here's where those chops really matter. Look at all the overflow from those settler chops that I just did. I get a ton of overflow, and now I can produce another worker, a 3rd worker, in 2 turns. Plus, I'm queuing up these workers to be in a position where I want them for the next city. So watch, we're going to move this settler into the same position, going to move him towards that 2nd city. Note that the settler will be able to found this city on the next turn, so as I mentioned before, building the road on these 2 tiles didn't really speed up the settler's movement. And the workers, I'm going to move into position. Watch, they're going to move right here, and they're going to build a road on this tile this turn. You might say, why would you road this tile? Well, what I'm doing is I'm getting them in position to move to this corn tile next turn. So watch. And again, we could ignore those lions. All right, so we move the settler first. The settler has to start out this turn. The settler will move here, found the 2nd city, again on the same tile. The city is 3 turns delayed. It comes out on turn 24 instead of turn 21, and that is a noteworthy delay. But this city's growth will not be impacted because, watch, instead of taking 4 turns to get the corn tile up and running, I'm going to have my 2 workers get this corn tile up and running immediately. So watch, they will both move here, they will both farm, and that farm will be done next turn. We'll turn down science to 0 for 1 turn because we want to get max gold returns. We want to avoid rounding errors. Hit next turn there. And now we've got our 3rd worker out. We're going to go ahead and turn science back on. So watch, these workers will finish their farming. Now that farm is already finished, so watch, Pasargadae, the 2nd city, is going to grow very quickly. In fact, it's going to grow almost as quickly. It will end up at being almost the same point as the city in the previous version that I looked at, the one that Dolphir did. Excuse me. So the fact that we delayed this city didn't even wind us hurting us. Didn't even end up hurting us that much. Plus, we've got 3 workers now as opposed to 2. And our capital is going to be at a higher pop point because we didn't whip it, as in that other scenario. So watch. This worker is going to come here. We're going to go ahead and throw down the road for this turn. I can't build cottages yet because pottery is still 1 turn away. So we might as well do that. Avoid wasting a worker turn. I'm going to hit next turn. Pottery finishes. At this point, it doesn't really matter what we research. I'll just queue up mysticism, but it doesn't really matter that much. Anyway, we finished a warrior, and look at this. We finished a warrior, and we're able to go right onto a granary with some overflow, with 5 overflow, immediately into a granary here in the capital. And I'm going to swap this city over to a granary too because that's more useful than another warrior. And this guy, he can just kind of chill out. So we've got the same number of warriors. Watch, this guy will go ahead and finish the road here. And instead of wasting a worker turn moving to the horses, we're going to go ahead and road this and then road that. And now we'll be able to move to the horses next turn, and it won't be wasted. So anyway, here's turn 26, right where we were in that other sim. So the 2nd city is slightly behind, but it's going to catch up very quickly because we had this corn tile done faster. And we're going to be able to get the horses tile pastured much faster as well. So we also have the capital at size 3, about to grow to size 4 very shortly. And we don't have any kind of whipping penalty to deal with either. Granted, that's not a huge deal because there's plenty of surplus happiness, but we don't have to deal with that. Now watch, I'm going to play 5 more turns, and I'm going to show you how having these extra workers out is going to accelerate this start much, much faster than the other one that you saw. So basically, we slowed down the 2nd city a little bit by getting that 2nd worker and then getting that 3rd worker out. We slowed ourselves down a little bit, but watch what happens by having these workers in place because we can improve tiles so much faster. Anyway, there's the trade route connection. Now we've got that same trade route. It was slower. We got the trade route on turn 27 instead of turn 21 or 22, but that trade route is not ultimately all that valuable. Anyway, so what do we want to do? Well, we've got 3 workers, and we've got this road. So watch what I'm going to have the workers do. They're going to move up here, move southeast, northeast, northeast, and this is what having roads will let you do. They're going to move up here. We've got pottery tech, so I'm going to throw down a cottage, and 3 workers are enough to finish a cottage on quick speed. So watch. Now we can stop working that tile, and we can begin working a cottage at Persepolis, which is very, very nice indeed. This guy, whatever, he can just hang out or do whatever. So now Persepolis is on 3 improved tiles. It's about to grow to size 4. But looky what we've got here. Pasargadae is about to grow to size 2. Oh no, Pasargadae doesn't have an improved tile to grow onto. Well, that's what having 3 workers allows us to do. So watch, we move down here, and 3 workers are enough to pasture a tile in 1 turn on quick speed, as we saw before. So they all move down here, no wasted worker turns, and now we've got our horses pasture done. And look at what we've got. Now we've got 2 improved tiles here, and this is a very good tile as well. 1 food, 4 production, 1 commerce. Very, very strong tile. That will help us get our granary up and running much faster in this second city. Meanwhile, back in the capital, we do have to pick up the silks tile again for a little bit. This is why I didn't want to chop that silks tile. Again, 2-1-1, not a great tile, but, you know, it's the best option that we have available at the moment. So what are we going to do now? Well, we're going to set up another improved tile for the capital. Again, whatever I choose here doesn't really matter. Let's just grab writing. Doesn't really matter at this point. So watch. Now the workers can move once again. 3 workers can together lay down a cottage in 1 turn on quick speed. So here we go. Lay down that cottage. And now Persepolis can work another cottage. So now we're size 4, and now we're working 4 improved tiles. We can just go ahead and do this again. Watch. Hit next turn. Now the capital's size 5. Oh, let's lay down yet another cottage for the capital. So 1, 2, and 3. And guess what? We've got yet another cottage for the capital. Oh, we're size 5. We're working 5 improved tiles, 2 resources, 3 grassland river financial cottages, and now we'll go ahead and queue up a settler because we don't need to, we'll come back to that granary later. Queue up the settler, go from there. And look at this. Oh no, Pasargadae is about to hit size 3. We don't have an improved tile for Pasargadae to work. Well, that's the magic of having a lot of workers in the early game. Cottage, cottage, and yet another cottage again. And now what we do is we just pick up this cottage right here, and guess what? This is why these cities are close together. They can share tiles. Now Pasargadae can take over that cottage tile as well. So check out what we've got here. If you look at what we've got, and I should have run 0% science. I should have run 0% science last turn. That was a mistake. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and correct that just because I wanted to have my sim look correct. This is why you do autosaves. All right, so let's go back. We'll go back 1 turn and get these guys to, I'm going to queue that up there. And these guys come over and lay down that cottage once more. And there we go. Grab that tile. Okay, so you want to run this, you generally want to alternate between 0 and 100% science. Don't run like other numbers. Okay, so there we go. Now we can turn up to 100% science. And that way at 20, we're at 25. That's actually a pretty big deal because we avoid a rounding error by doing that. And now we'll do the same thing that I just did before, which was to lay down this cottage. And then we're in the situation that I wanted. Oh, and I should have queued up that settler last turn. Whatever, I'm not going to go back again. But I should have queued up that settler last turn. But you get the idea. We should be on a settler. The settler should be at 5 turns. And then we'll probably 2-pop whip this settler to completion. Well, actually, we're not in slavery. I should have revolted to slavery. I don't know. Should have revolted to slavery at some point in there. But you get the idea. The idea is you've got a capital. It's size 5. It's working 5 improved tiles. Second city, size 3. It's working 3 improved tiles. And, you're in really good shape as far as demographics go. You can see high food, high GMP, and you're often researching at a great clip. So this is how you use financial to good effect, basically. When you're playing as a financial civ, you want, and if you're a financial civ and you've got one of these beautiful grassland river valleys with high food resources, you just lay down the grassland river cottages and you try to set up cities so that they can share the cottages, and you just use settler whips and use forest chops and whips for your production and just go to town working the cottages. So anyway, obviously that's a little bit unfair because I've played an additional 5 turns and obviously I'm going to be in better shape from playing extra turns. But I hope it shows sort of how these things work together, how you kind of want to interlink the way the workers are laying down tile improvements, and you want to avoid those wasted worker turns if at all possible. Yes, I had some, but not very many. And on quick speed in particular, building a lot of early game workers can be extremely powerful. Just because it's so, your cities grow so fast on quick, and it's not, and you need to have tile improvements in place basically for them to grow onto. So getting more workers up a little bit earlier probably would have made this start a little bit stronger. I guess that's all I have to say. So anyway, I love doing these starts. It's so much fun. It takes some time and planning to get it right, but when everything sort of perfectly links up together, it's a really nice feeling. It's really cool when everything kind of comes together and you're like, oh, I've got all my cities growing onto improved tiles just as they hit the next size. And then you toss in slavery and you use slavery intelligently, but that's kind of how I'd play this start. So anyway, and then you could go in a lot of directions from here. But basically, I would just keep pushing settlers and keep right on expanding as quickly as possible onto as many grassland river cottages as possible. So anyway, that's all for this video. Again, hope people enjoyed this. I'm sorry there hasn't been more Civ 4 content. I'm sorry that I have not had a chance to get around to continuing the Always War Babylon game, but I do intend to do that at some point. Anyway, until next time, hope everybody's having a great week. See you guys again later. Till then, take care.